start. Great. So once again, welcome everyone. Welcome to our gender session, Women in Energy, Communities, Wishful Thinking into Practice. This webinar is actually taking place in the context of the USINA project, the European Citizen Energy Academy. And I'm very happy today that we're organizing this very interesting discussion. I'm really looking forward to having actually the input from the highly esteemed speakers and the conversation with each and every one of you, actually, the participants of this webinar, because we're really here to discuss, reflect, and see what specific actions can we take indeed to support the energy transition with gender justice in its core. I will actually only mention, as I see more people joining, I will mention that we are very grateful for the support of USINA to the GIZ and OIKI. It has been a very nice 2 years that we have been organizing a lot of different activities. We will now continue with this particular gender session. I will stop my presentation here and I will pass the floor to my colleague Katarina from WECF to help us to introduce us a little bit more in detail to the session of today. Katarina.
Thank you very much, Antonia, and good morning, everybody. So I see familiar faces, that is great, and I see new faces. So thanks for your interest into the topic. Now it's one of our, in the frame of USINA, is one of our last activities, agenda webinar. So we did our all 4 webinars, and also we did more sessions in our summer school in Thessaloniki on gender, and gender was and is an important focus in the USINA project, so to make energy communities more gender just. And so we started to show the relevance of gender just energy communities. Why do we need gender just communities? We showed the barriers, so we stick today a little bit to the barriers, but I think we are well aware about the barriers. We presented tools and instruments, what could be done on community level and also on policy level. And we did some surveys, and we are very happy that we can present 2 surveys today, asking energy communities, asking stakeholders, experts in the field of energy communities, how can we improve the situation? So Bin, could you share the agenda, please? I think that's the next slide. Now on the presentation, maybe so just to share some.
Sorry, it just I put the other one.
Shifting to the other presentation is fine. Don't worry. Don't worry.
No problem. Yeah, thank you. Yes, so we yep, here we are. That's super. So we have a very small icebreaker, and then we talk. So we talk about the main barriers, a bit more detailed. So why we are still struggling, and the topic today is from wishful thinking in reality. So we can show that the awareness for gender has increased, but now we have to make it happen, and that's our next challenge. So here's the topic. We will show recommendations, and as we said, results of the surveys. That's very interesting because it's also very concrete. And then we are super happy to share with you good practices. So to see what energy communities are doing, what's going on in projects in the field of energy communities, and renewable energy overall. And here we share the good practices of 4 examples. That's very interesting. And then we will have a discussion and really to try to become more concrete. What are the very next steps on cooperative level, and what do we have to demand from policymakers? For example, what can we bring to Brussels next week, to the Energy Week, where at least I have seen 3 events on the topic of energy communities. Yeah, that's a very short introduction, and I will hand over to you, Queen, and you have prepared an icebreaker, so 2 short questions.
Yes, thank you, Katrina. Now I would like you all to move to menti.com, and I'll give you a code so that you can log in there then. Just a second. So, okay, now you can see my screen.
Yeah.
And you have a code on the top. You can use that.
Yes. In the chat is the address, menti.com. Thank you.
Yes, menti.com is the website. And then when you go there, you have to put this link, the code. Then you will come to this question that we have here. And then you can start answering. Just let me know once you're in there so that I can guide you how to do it. Even the rest of the speakers can also participate. It would be really great.
Great. I mean.
So the first question is, who are the main agents to improve gender equality in energy communities? You can vote whom you think are more important in your perspective. I see 3 people, 4, nice. 5, 6, 7, nice. Great. We have 8 responses. Awesome. So, okay, I see the change. So you think that energy communities are the main agents as compared to the rest of the, but national governance is also one of the important factors, agents. But why not NGO and EU? Why not overall sector? Okay, now people are shifting to communities. Okay, I see. You get the, okay, great. Then we move to the next question then. And this is going to be second one. Now I've changed the slide. You can also get the second question on your menti.com. And now the question is, which gender tools and skills do you want to develop? You have 9 options, but you can choose your preference. It's up to you. You can choose first, maybe like indicators, and then for the second, you can say data and leave the rest as well. But if you want to give all the ranking, that's also fine. So you can start now. Training sustaining is the main thing that I see on the topmost priority. Communication, network exchange is third. Indicators and monitoring is, oh, it moved from 5th to 3rd position. Nice. Second, training is still on the top. Indicators monitoring is on the 2nd position. 3rd is communication guidelines. 3rd position, really low, like small difference between the 2nd and 3rd position. 4th is networking. Then we have financial mechanism, gender quotas, special offers. Apparently nobody wants to work on social harassment policy development, or maybe it already exists. That's also a point, but that's a good trend. Thank you so much. I think with this we close our, so you have the results for you. One is energy communities. I'm just summing it up. Energy communities, you think that they are the main agents for gender equality, to improve the gender equality. And then you think national governance is the one. And then if you see you need trainings, indicators, communication guidelines and network exchange as the 4 topmost skills that you want to develop. Financial, gender quotas, special offers, disaggregated data in the same sequence, but are the lesser, how do you say, lesser popular tools that you want to develop. But they are still important. You still voted for them. So somewhere or the other, you have to develop those in the later years. So that's it. And I pass the floor back to Katharina. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So any comments on the results? I think that's very interesting. So who are the main agents? So national policy and the energy communities. And I have to say, I have to agree, because I guess the energy communities, they could do a lot. They could do much more. And that is what we will see with the input of Stefan. But of course, it would be also nice to have more coherent policy and also to see from the policy level. But if you have any thoughts on that, you can address it now or also later on in the discussion after the input. Antonia?
Maybe just my first thought when I saw the questions, and I was like, okay, one choice, tough. I was also considering the NGOs, for instance, especially like NGOs with the experience, the expertise on this gender, the issue of gender. Nevertheless, I went for the energy communities because I think that, you know, it is on us, it is on the communities themselves, you know, to be the driving force. You know, we have the agency to, you know, bring change. Of course, not on our own. We need the support from all the other actors, and the national, let's say, authorities are also important players in this. It's just for the fact that I think that if you don't have the willingness of the energy communities themselves, you will not see change. Even if you have the national support, the NGO support, all different support, you need to have the commitment and the engagement of the communities for the change to materialize.
Yeah, yes, I agree. I think that's really, yeah, it is what I will mention now also what we reinforce in the energy community. So I think that is, we have a lot of opportunities, what we can do. Yeah, so we continue, and I would give you a very short overview about the barriers. So we talked a lot about the personal barriers and the structural barriers and financial barriers, but now we would like to go a bit deeper after many talks, after many webinars, and so the surveys, for example. So what we think what might be the barriers for on the level of energy communities, what could be done, where to start, because the point is what we ask very often is where to start, because there are many tools. And I think what is also very positive today, what we see in the presentation of Stefan and the Queen with the surveys and all with the good practices, to start at a level where you think it's okay. And what we faced in all the discussions and the result of the service, for example, is that many energy communities, well, they have mostly less than 50% female members, and they do not know anything about the female members. They do not know what are their interests, about what they need, why they joined the energy community, how did they get the information about the energy community, was it per accident, was it via the partners, a husband, for example. And I think so here that would be, for example, a very first step to do a very short and easy analysis, to ask the members, for example, and also ask the female members, what is their interest and why they are members, and is it easy, for example, to become a member of an energy cooperative. So to get this information, that could be maybe, hopefully, an easy exercise, so to overcome that. The second, that's a very big barrier, it's a recruitment. It's anyhow, so the statement, what we hear, well, we don't know women, they are not interested to be engaged, we don't know how to recruit them, we don't have networks. And so what we see here, and here we have a very nice example, what we share today is that there are recruitment strategies around, but you have to plan like a strategy. You have to think about how will I approach women? Is it just so I approach women and I will say, for example, we would like to have more female members and it would be great if you could join because you are women. So they are very, and so this kind of approaches and to see what could be done and really so to develop a strategy to approach different networks, to approach different women, to explain what is an energy community, and then really to implement a recruitment strategy. And that's not a one-day activity, it's a process. So it's that is what we have learned now also as a main barrier, and that might be time consuming. The next barrier is the lack of awareness of the decision makers. So it's the decision makers on the level of the energy communities, in the management board and in the supervisory board. So what is our experience is you have some people, women and men, they would like to go for more women, for more gender equality, but you have to convince your own colleagues. That's also time intensive. And of course, for example, decision makers in the municipalities on regional, on national level, so to have a higher awareness of more women in energy communities and to link these ideas of energy communities as a bottom-up development, as a development to have a socially just and a gender just energy transition, and to push this development so to really to understand the opportunity what we have in the energy communities in this concept. And what it's linked here with the lack of awareness is so what we see is that we with having new members on board, not considering gender, not increasing the share of women, for example, that we reproduce the stereotypes and the gender injustice. So we talk that we would like to have it, but there is no change, and that's really difficult. So it's it's known and it's seen that there is no development and it's not interesting for women to step in, and there is no security, it's no safe space, for example, for women to be engaged, and so women are hesitating to become engaged. And that's also known that gender is important, but we lack of resources, we lack of priorities, and we lack of implementation. So that's a positive step that we see increased awareness. But on the other hand, so we do not see so much activities we would like to see. So we see activities because we share our examples today, but it should be much more after knowing how important it is, after having all the arguments for gender just and socially just energy transition, but so we still lack concrete activities. So that are more or less the barriers we talked about and we experienced on a very, very concrete level. And so do you have any questions here on the barriers? Any thoughts, any examples? So I don't see a hand. So if not, I would invite Stefan, so Stefan Xenger from the World Wind Energy Association, and they did in cooperation with the county Nordrhein-Westfalen with Association for Renewable Energy, a study on women in energy communities, so a very practical study on two levels. The first one, what are the barriers? How is the situation? And second, what needs to be done to have more women in energy communities? And so the survey and the study refers to the county Nordrhein-Westfalen compared also to a region in Japan. And Stefan, we are very happy that you are here and you share the results of the study with us. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. And now I just tried it before and it worked, and it seems my slides are, I hope this is now going. Okay,
yeah, now we see the presenter mode.
Yeah, that is what happened. What did not was not on the display, so I have to do this in a different way. Okay, sorry, but at first, thank you very much for having me here. I think what I just need to do is make this bigger so that you can. Oops. So yeah, it's been very interesting to see your, or to also to answer your question regarding the whom to address first. And I was, frankly speaking, a bit hesitating whether it's the governments or the communities. And then I decided that the first priority should be the community energy entities. Let me explain what we're doing is
Sorry, Stefan, do you want to show the presenter modus? Now we see just
yeah, I tried, but I think this is just showing this weird
Previously it worked, so
again,
if you try once more, I think it's gonna be.
now we see now it's
Now
good.
yes.
Super.
Is it okay?
Yep, now it's
That's
okay.
funny because I still see the same here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where is my but okay. So we do a 2-year study, or we are about to conclude a 2-year study on women in community energy. And in the first year, we collected data about the share of women in community energy entities in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is the biggest state of Germany. So we expect that also would be kind of applicable for other states. And in parallel, we did that in Japan as well. We have partners there. So these are the organizations.
Stefan,
Stefan, for the interruption. Now we see you, and as background, we see your, I think your normal, we lost a PowerPoint. Maybe you could send, maybe you try again, and if it does not work, you could send it to me and and we will share it.
Okay, what do you see now?
Now we see you and we see your background. So it's a logo of community power and etc.
Obviously, it stopped now. I'm sorry.
No problem. I think
done this many times, but these computers are sometimes.
Yeah, and also Zoom has their own dynamic sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also true.
But we see again the presentation. Yeah.
Okay, I tried this now last time to put it into presentation mode. If not, then I just Okay.
Now we see.
Try 5 times and then once it will work. Okay. Yeah, again, sorry. So here you see the organizations which have been part, and Katharina, you've been personally also, you are a member of the advisory committee of that. So we've done, in the first year, we made a survey amongst community energy entities in North Rhine-Westphalia and in Japan, found out that in Germany, or in North Rhine-Westphalia, which I think is similar all over Germany, the share of women is 29% amongst shareholders, holding 27% of the shares. Quite differences here, smaller with less shareholders, community energy entities, and this is not only cooperatives, are typically larger projects, wind farms, where you have farmers usually, so they have maybe only 10 shareholders, something like that. And there the share is even 10% or less in average. Like the typical urban solar cooperative, they have an average higher share of women. So the kind of key conditions that we find is community energy is very important for the energy transformation. And of course, by definition, it needs to be inclusive and participatory. But the women are underrepresented, which of course is in itself contradicting with the how we define community energy. So we ask first women and men about why are you not yet? So we ask people who are not involved. We reached out to like 300 people who are not involved. What keeps you back from joining a community energy entity? And there's a quite clear difference between what the men are telling us and what the women are telling us. So for women, money, or at first time, is a factor that keeps them from taking part. Money is a factor that keeps them from taking part. And information they don't feel comfortable about, or they don't feel that they know enough about energy and community energy. When you look at the answers from men, they also rate these 3 factors, but substantially lower. When you see it again, going back 41% of the women say time is a limiting factor, 29% say money. In the case of the men, it's 35% versus 26%. So what we conclude here is that first, it's really important, and I was very clear in my answer to your second question, communication, I think, is really the first most important tool in all this. There must be a better understanding, because also these answers reflect sometimes some misunderstandings about the general understanding of how community energy works, what it is, and create dynamic forms of participation. There should be low financial thresholds. I mean, we know that some entities that you need to contribute like thousands of euros, but some have very low threshold. And we know from one where they have some kind of system that even other members are supporting new members by sponsoring their membership. That is a way of supporting, and they have also higher share of women amongst their members. Many women do not know a community energy in their region. That again refers to the fact that there must be more and better communication if the community energy sector wants to grow. 83% of women say we do not know a community energy entity in our region. That is substantially different from what the men have been telling us with 69%. Then how many women and men got an offer to invest in community energy? Again, in the case of women, it is higher, but men also, it's relatively high, the number who never got approached directly and have been offered to participate and to invest actually. This again refers to a general problem, I think, that communicating will help to overcome. So our next recommendations are build networks and alliances with other local stakeholders. I think that has already been touched also upon by a previous presentation. It's really important. Community energy is something that is usually taking place on the local level and is part of what is happening in the normal life of people. So once these entities, like in my personal case, I'm a supervisory board member, we've just now teaming up with the church, who make a kind of a they are about to create a sub-cooperative. Of course, those who go to church and they trust the church, they will then trust, of course, also an entity which has the blessing of the church. Direct and personal approach is closely related to that. Develop social media activities. It's been amazing how many of these entities have been telling us that they don't do anything, or they mainly focus on printed newspapers. We're living in 2022, and some, of course, intentionally, they are still kind of not so much interested in reaching out. But if we want this sector to grow, then of course it needs to use the tools that are common now in social interaction, and this is including Facebook and maybe LinkedIn and etc. What we also heard from those who are more successful in attracting women is that they also do sometimes gender-specific activities. So they do a specific event inviting women. No? So I do now a guided tour to our wind farm, and we do it for women. So that seems to be attractive. And this is not that I'm kind of explaining why this is the case. It's just that we heard that this is going hand in hand with more female participation. Now, something very interesting, I think that's really important to understand. There we found the biggest difference between men and women. We asked about interest in climate policies. So women say we have 57%, we have a very high, or 30% said we have a high interest in energy and climate policies. When we asked the women about their interest in energy policies, it's similarly high. So 28% say it's very high, and 39% says it's high. When we ask them how they rate their own knowledge, then you see the difference is amazing, because only 2% of the women who responded said that their knowledge is high or is very high, and 30% said it's high. Most of them said it's average. While 70% of the men say their knowledge is very high or high. 70% compared to 32%. There was no other answer where we saw such a big difference. And I think this is something that we really need to then take into account, because that doesn't mean that women know less than men, but it's obviously something that needs to be addressed in the way how community energy entities communicate with, in particular, women if they want to attract them. So it must be something that allows, obviously, women to feel kind of more comfortable with their decision. So I think that's something, and I wouldn't even say that we have the final answer to this, but this is certainly, for me, it's quite astonishing to see this difference. So we also asked why would people participate in community energy, and the main factors were mitigating climate change, expansion of renewables, social contribution. Financial return was not so high. Of course, this is also something that may be impacted by what the respondents believe is expected. But still, I think it's interesting that it's not the money which is seen as the main driver of this. That also should be considered when we talk about communication strategies. So women want to invest in community energy. So all these women, most of them are not directly yet involved. 62% say, yes, I would like to invest, and 34%, yeah, I haven't decided it. Only 4% say no. There's a big potential, that's also clear, but that potential needs to be addressed with the right strategy. So the last set of our recommendations is put citizen-oriented and concrete communication and the contribution to the local climate protection in the center. So if you can explain, yeah, we're going to invest in this. This will reduce here our maybe even carbon footprint by, we have a wind farm, we have a solar, we will invest in solar panels. Aim for qualitative growth of community energy, not so much emphasizing that this is a big business, which will now have a great investment return, but it's growing as part of the society. And very, very important, and Katharina, I think you made that point also very clear, position women visibly in responsibility, because also very, very clear kind of correlation that we found. It's obviously also quite trivial, but when women are leading community energy entities, then that attracts more women. We have one actually cooperative, of course, which is a special case, which is female only, but otherwise, aside from that also, when women are managing director or supervisory board, that automatically obviously means there's also more female shareholders. So I think I'll be happy to share my slides so that you don't need to kind of catch this now. We're going to publish officially our report in about a month from now. It will be published in German and in English, and you can download it from our website. And of course, coming back to this first question, governments are also important players. And of course, national governments are the main players, there's no doubt. We have political recommendations, but I think it's very clear the governments must provide the general frameworks for gender equality and justice, and they must provide the general frameworks for renewables to grow and for community energy, that community energy can grow. And the community energy entities have the responsibility to attract in the women and change a bit their approach, not so much a closed circle of white old men like that, that's typically the case, but become open. And if these two factors, I think these are very different responsibilities, come together, then I think there is a big potential here that with more gender sensitivity in our field, we can help the whole transformation to succeed. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. So it's really super interesting. I have it the second time, but it's still eye-opening. And I guess the point of missing social media and old white men is a strong correlation. So maybe there could be two problems solved with more women, more younger people. Not only, I think it's also a generational issue, of course, what you have mentioned. Thank you. I think that's great. So Stefan can't stay until the end of our webinar because next week is Hamburg wind exhibition, a big wind energy exhibition. So do you have any questions to Stefan? So you could raise it now. And so if not, we could forward it. And thanks for providing the presentation. And we will let you know as soon as the results are published on your homepage. Any remarks or questions at the moment? I don't see something. So it was I think it was really clear and convincing. So very interesting result. And again, on the communication, I think it's also very interesting that we need to explain it much clearer now, what is so obvious to us. So to have a very good communication. So that's we are now. Antonia?
And maybe like one comment from my side, indeed, very interesting presentation. It's completing, let's say, some puzzle situation that we have actually to understand what's happening. I just wanted to stress that I find very interesting that you really put it like very clearly as a recommendation, to really focus also on the qualitative growth of the communities, because maybe we keep on discussing, okay, let's keep on producing more. It's the urgency, it's the climate, we need to produce more renewable energy. But we should also indeed remember to grow in terms of, I describe it more like in depth. We really to start changing the way we think a little bit, to start changing the way we operate, not only how we consume the energy actually and the renewable energy that we produce, but overall, to really like empower more women to be involved, to empower people that have not necessarily had the access so far due to broader societal issues. Let's not touch them all. But I think that to make it short, I think that's a very critical element, and thanks for underlining it so clearly.
If I may just briefly respond to that, I mean, it is some have answered that there, just in terms of investment, there's not even a need to involve shareholders because you can get the money from the bank. You may get 100% of the loan that you need from the bank. So it's just, if you just look at it from this kind of industrial development side, there's not so much the purpose of it. It's to you allow people to take part, in particular the women now. Of course, that applies for men as well, but then it makes this big project a social project, and that is what we need.
Yeah, I think that is really the point at the moment where we see that many people feel the energy system is much more in just as it has been for the last year. So now it becomes obvious, and we think, and I'm convinced that we have the concept, the midterm and long-term concept, or maybe not for the next winter, who is talking everybody about it, but of course we have to take the right decisions now and have to start. I think that is really super crucial. And so it's very interesting to see the results. It's really eye-opening. Thank you very much, Stefan. And
thank you, and I wish you successful.
And good luck next week in Hamburg.
Thank you.
So we go ahead, and so my colleague Sukhbeen, she will present very quickly the results, what we did also with a survey on energy communities in Europe. So we don't stress on the results too much because we presented them also already in Thessaloniki at the summer school where some of you already joined, but also on the recommendations we developed out of them on different levels. Sukhbeen.
Thank you, Katharina. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview about what were the results so that you understand why we came up with certain recommendations. So let's start with the barriers. Katharina talked about what are the barriers and women interest, lack in decision-making power. This is exactly what we are talking. It's same thing that we got as in the result as well. But the first thing that we saw is that the other priority part, that 66.7%, so like 67% of the communities, they don't prioritize gender when they are working. And so that's why when you're not focusing on gender, you automatically divert yourself to other priorities, and somewhere gender goes goes deeper and deeper and ignored for the years. And Also, when you said that there is no management position, as Katrina mentioned, again, 42% again thinks that there is no lack of awareness in the management team. If we don't have that, we can't implement in the organization, within the communities, gender integration. So obviously, when you same goes for the visibility, women are not really visible or engaged in certain position. Therefore, we don't see role models, and people are little hesitant than to be part of the communities or be in certain roles, because they think if we are not there, like if they don't see a person, a woman already in the field, they would be like, maybe it's too difficult for me to go in. And I think we also last week had one example from Bremen community. It's a cooperative, and the Wolfgang, the one of the person from the community, mentioned that he wanted to hire a woman for his advisory board. And when she said, how many women are there, and he said just one woman in the entire board, and then you would be the second woman. And she said, no, I don't want to be part of the board until you reach 30%. Then only I will go on board. So she basically denied, saying that, okay, no women, but that's her priority. It's not about, in this case, it's not about visibility. It's about, you see, it's not a gender balanced situation, and she doesn't want to be part of it. This is my perspective, but I'm not sure about hers. So moving on from here, I'll tell you about the perception now, because I told you it was my perception of her, why she did that. But let's talk about the community perception. Back to the survey. If you the results are quite similar to what Stefan showed, because we also asked men and women, why we asked the people, actually the communities, what do you think, why women, if women have more interest or more knowledge, or men have more interest or more knowledge, time and money. So it's all about these. And you see, all in blue are men, right? It's by default color. It's nothing to do with the stereotyping. But for 45%, 47 for 26, and you see a steep fall for when you see how much of women are interested, or they have time or knowledge. So you see this huge gap, and we have to make sure that when we do the recommendations, when you do implement some tools, you make sure that women are given knowledge, they are attracted to certain, they have gained more interest into the fields, and you of course give them little money, because they also need to survive, so they need finances. And of course the time crunch is always there. And when we see the overall view, if the gender topics are important or not, 36% of communities consider that gender topic is extremely important, and 40% says that it is important, very important. And then there is like still 5% who says it's not important. So we have to change the perception now. That's also a point that we pick up from here. Then we talk about the needs. 61% said they are interested to have trainings because gender is important, as we already established in our previous graph. But 16% said it's not a priority, and 14% are not even aware of it. But then when you ask them what type of gender tools and skills would you like to develop, just like the question that I asked you in the starting on the Mentimeter. But here is from the result from communities on the right side. You see all the orange bars are existing tools, and the future interest is in yellow. So what you see is that priority has been there, like no priority is more focused in the existing practices, but eventually you see that diminishing. So that means gender is taking a step forward for everybody. It is coming into the limelight. So that's a good point. But now if we see network exchange or disaggregated data, communication, all these things are gaining popularity, not popularity, but the demand that people want to develop their skills so that they can improve. So we have to make sure that we organize something, we have some policies, recommendations, so that we can establish skills within the communities. If you can't do that, hire people from outside. So these are the part of the recommendations that you're going to see further. So since the barriers are there, I gave you little insights how we are connecting with the recommendation. I would say the recommendation can be at 3 levels. One, the macro level, which is the bigger, huge national level, larger scale level. Meso level, which is a medium scale where the communities lie, and the micro level, which is individuals. Meso level is basically connecting individuals to the national level. So that's why the communities are the best way to build the gap. So I'll start with the recommendation from the macro level. Stefan also mentioned about the political involvement, right? So we also say that we should have and follow the legislative framework, find the guidelines. We do have EU level gender equality strategies, mainstreaming documents. Just go through them, pick up the things that you can implement in your organization, in your communities, or at individually, what you can think. So just be aware at that point. But the league at a national level, these should exist. That's the one thing. If they are not, for example, European Green Deal, WECF revised the policy, Green Deal policy, and created a publication saying that gender is not involved. It should be cross-cutting aspect. So analyze the situation, the national level policies that you're getting. So revise, submit, publish the policies and guidelines with gender cross-cutting aspect. Use or refer to good practices from international pilot projects. Find the women initiatives. For example, WenCoop is one of the all women led initiative. That's it's a cooperative based in Greece. And then apply gender sensitive communication at all levels. I saw in the chat, Sarah mentioned that Italy has recently done that. They have a guidelines for saying about having some professions in the feminine pronouns when you're looking for that. So that could be one example. Then we have tried to push and implement gender mentoring programs or coaching programs. Crowdfunding and gender budgeting can also be part of the energy communities, because you need finances at one point or the other to establish a community. And establish gender award for best practices examples. We have one for WECF, has one for the climate solutions. So that can be one example. Then I would say recommendation at meso level, where we communities come. So the first thing I would say is, let's treat gender as a cross-cutting topic, not just one topic, that you have to focus gender in just one thing, think about it and keep on building. No, think about all the topics that you're doing and how to put gender in each topic. So if you're talking about management part, put it there. If you're doing a project, put it there. So it can be anywhere, basically. So be aware of that and just integrate it in the system so that you don't have to double think or specially think about gender, but it's already inbuilt there, that this is one of the parameters that I have to work on and put a tick at it. Then also the other recommendation is to democratize the energy system. So use bottom-up approach. We are bringing citizens, right? So we have to make sure it's not just the men, but also women or the diverse gender that we are bringing in. And the tools that we are trying to establish, use them. It's not just indicators monitoring, you build upon it. You are working, you want to do the analysis, you work with the questions that you want to find within your community or how you want to improve. So gender self-assessment, gender action plan, trainings, then you go for gender equality plans. There are different plans that you can find from the national policies or from at the micro level, and that you can also use some elements of it for your communities.
So Queen, you have to speed up a bit, sorry, but you
yeah, sure.
maybe two more minutes, so please.
Yes, I'm speeding up now. So promote, so the idea is that you're just using the policy at your community level, then promote prosumer model so that everybody is incorporated, just like bottom-up approach. Collaborate with the feminist organization and create safe spaces, involve men to talk about it, because men are usually not considered in the talk. That's why we need to find initiatives that can help you men to join the movement. But as an individual level where you are not part of the community or any, or really small part but not doing much, you think, then you can start with awareness. You first acknowledge, understand that there are barriers, needs, capabilities that you need to build upon. And then the most important thing, Stefan mentioned that in the previous one, that women said they have knowledge, but when you ask them their perception of how much knowledge they have, they're not like, okay, average. Men were like, we are we have a high knowledge. So the importance is, instead of undermining, as an individual, build courage. It's, and also find programs where you can enroll yourself, women, non-binary gender. So you have to build courage, enroll, you go for skill development, leadership management training, mentoring programs, and then also break the stereotypes that you have. It will take time, but eventually you have to unlearn few practices that you already have in the society and break the barrier, break the stereotype. Again, and for that you need to provide safe spaces in your communities, but as an individual you can't provide in case, but at least advocate for it. That's the only thing. And that's it for the recommendation. I'll pass back the floor to Katharina. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sukhvin. So also for the recommendations on the 3 levels, I think that's very important, and it shows very nice what we ask in the beginning, who are the main agents. So just to have recommendations on policy on national level. And I think the meso levels, that's really nice because it's combined the communities and the individuals. I think that is our core, our strengths, what we can do. Super. So if are there any questions, any comments on it? So I don't see at the moment. So if this is not the case, so I would now, we could start to share our good practice example, because I think that's a positive outcome also of the development. And so to have, to see communities, to deal with it, to recruit more women, to change the communication and so on. Here, I'm very happy to welcome Camille from EcoPower. So EcoPower is a very big energy community, is very well known, and one of the front runners. And so you have like a program to empower women, to include more women, to have more female members. And we are very happy to have you here, Camille. And you said you present your concept, what you are doing on a concrete basis.
Yes, thank you, Katharina. I will share my screen. Can you see it? Yeah, okay,
yes,
great. So good morning, everyone. I'm Camille. I'm working with EcoPower, as Katharina already said. I will take you through like the strategic exercise that we're doing at EcoPower for our future. It's called Step 2030, and it's our like 6 key areas, 6 working points that we have established that we want to reach ideally for 2030, but we will see. And one of those working points is EcoPower represents and includes in its operation all groups in society to achieve an inclusive, supported, and successful energy transition. I think that's the most interesting also for here. What we found important about that is that we kind of focus more on youth. So more on younger people to attract to our cooperative, more on gender, and on economically vulnerable groups. But right now I will talk about the gender. We're really at the beginning of this strategic future exercise. So are just ideas, and some actions are more concrete than others. But you will see. Right now, how is the the gender balance at EcoPower right now for our members, it's really difficult to know. It's really difficult to say because we don't ask. And if we don't ask, you don't know. We have really not that much data. So that's definitely a working point. What we can see is that the electricity contract is often on the men's name. So we see there a big difference. And when we go to look at our webinars, events, surveys that we do, we can see that there is almost 78% that are men who will participate, and the women are 22%. So we want to strive for a more equal balance in that. So that's our main objective. And we increase the gender balance in EcoPower's membership as a reflection of society. We talk about the members, so not definitely the customers. And a second objective is that there is a gender balance in the participation of the activities that we organize. So that we can see that there are more women participating. How do we want to measure it? With some more survey data, statistics, for example, also from social media. And we are planning to ask more, to have like a zero meeting also. What is your gender, or how do you identify yourself? For example, when they subscribe to our newsletters or when they purchase a share to become a member. As KPI, success, we see success a little bit broad. It will be an increase of the indicators, and a little bit softer KPI can be like when we go back and look back and okay, which actions have succeeded? What did we learn from our actions or measurements? Before I take you to the concrete actions, I just want to show you in which working fields the actions will operate and which are like the sub goals that leads to which the actions lead to. The work fields, we divide it in internal and general operations. So within more like the intern cooperation, then more outside is our communication and image through members, but also through the broader world. And then we have member actions, so really in relation to the EcoPower members, and of course networking and partners. We have defined some sub-goals. So EcoPower has an impact measurement around gender. I think that's a very important first step. If you want to do actions that you also can measure the impact. Then EcoPower's language and image is gender inclusive and diverse. I have read in the chat that Sarah, you have shown something interesting in Italy that already exists. I think it's very interesting. Then everyone finds their way to EcoPower and everyone can join EcoPower, and everyone can participate in the activities, because we see sometimes that our activities are not on the right time or in the right scope for certain groups of society. So now a little bit more concrete. In the headline, you can see the different working fields, and then I have listed some of the actions, or not all of them, but just some I have highlighted. The baseline measurements I already said. We also want to identify like the thresholds and the processes and structures that are right now in our cooperative that may be a barrier for certain groups. And then we want to establish gender policies in HR, in representation, in communication. For what communication and image, storytelling, we think it's very important that there are women cooperatives employees, that we just have a gender diverse representation of EcoPower to the outside world. Also, when we go to give some webinars or go to present lectures at the universities, that we pay attention that there is more an equal balance in men and women there. Then establish gender neutral language policy, and also creating like more database of images where you can also see more women. Member actions, as I already told, we think we have events that maybe not be always matchy to the availability or the needs to the groups, or as we have seen that women tend to think they have little knowledge or that they don't go to understand certain things. We want to work on that. We also want to do a survey of our members to see, okay, where do they think we can help, we can improve. And one that's also really important, I think, I have put it in member actions and networking, is composing a sounding board group for all of these actions that we have, like a board group who we can present the actions that we want to and ask experts, but also members, women in themselves, what do you think of these actions? How do you feel about it? And of course, yeah, things like this, learning from you, other cooperatives, working with other organizations around the gender theme and creating partnerships. And to conclude, I just want to highlight one example of how that could work like across different working fields. So for example, it's going about the gender neutral language. We can draw up a language policy in our communication and image. Then we need to coordinate that with partners, with some members, so that we can establish something that really works. And then internal and in our general working with our employees, we need to make it that it can work within our company and that everyone uses it and that everyone knows what's the policy around it. And then in the end, we hope that we reach our sub goal, and that's that we have a gender inclusive and gender diverse image. So that was it. I don't know if you have questions, or maybe it's not right now that we do questions. I leave the floor to Antonia or Katarina.
Camille, I think that was very interesting. So it's really a sound concept what you have developed. I think that's really super. It's not, well, it's really, but it's a concept. It's not one activity. It's very convincing. And I think so seeing it from such a big cooperative, it also shows and can be a role model. So that's great. I would go ahead with the next example, and then after our good practice, so we could have discussions, and
Great.
it would be great. So I'm also happy to have Chris here from Electra Energy, also a partner of our Usina project, and advanced with gender in the energy communities. And so we are looking forward to hear your approach and your lessons learned, Chris.
Yeah, I think after this presentation by EcoPower, we definitely want him advanced. But yeah, I have a few points to share that we've been trying to promote as a cooperative. So Electra Energy, I mean, most of you know us. Basically, we are a social cooperative that promotes the creation of energy communities. But we, as individuals, we also tend to be members of separate energy communities as well. So kind of the few points that I will mention now are kind of interchangeable in the sense that we try to do them both as Electra, but also within the energy communities that we support. So a common example that we kind of have started trying to integrate in all our communications is following the Gender Power Working Group that our president, Miriam, is also a member of. She's also here. Maybe she can say something after. But also disseminating and signing the actual ambition statement of the Gender Power Working Group. I think it's characteristic that when we were completing the best practice guide for Eusina, and I was communicating with some energy communities from across Greece, I was telling them, oh, by the way, did you read and sign this this ambition statement? And I was specifically talking to this energy community from Crete, and you know, Crete is very known to be kind of a very patriarchal and male-dominated society, even in the best of cases and with people with the best of intentions. So the president of this community that I was talking to was like very amazed. Oh, what is that? But not in a bad way, but like genuinely surprised. So it was interesting to see the reactions. So yeah, we are currently actually looking for a new, in our small team at Electra, we're looking for a new collaborator. And we've had these internal discussions about actually trying either for that to be a woman or of a person of a different gender other than male. And we do also push energy communities that we support, such as Hyperion in Athens or Samos Energy Community in the island of Samos, in their respective elections for board of directors. We try to push them to actually achieve gender parity. And I think just also reflecting on two things that were brought up through the previous presentations, or what Sarah mentioned in the chat. We do try in our communications, definitely at least the younger people in the communities, to use this gender neutral language, because, for example, Greek is a very gendered language. It's not like English. It has like very particular masculine or feminine characteristics. So we try to use like the @ symbol, which makes it gender neutral, or use like feminine language. And I think for me that creates a safe space and a common understanding that all of us here are applying a gender lens. And finally, also reflecting back on what Sukhvin, you were saying about actually referring to the best practice examples in your presentations and so on. This is also something we try to do. Like in all of our presentations, we mention WhenCoop, for example, the Greek all-women energy community. Just kind of as a way to uplift these initiatives. I think for sure we are lacking, and I'm gonna close the presentation by saying this. For sure we are lacking with kind of implementing and horizontalizing this. Kind of, for example, creating a gender action plan and all of that. As we just heard now from Camille from EcoPower, we haven't actually put these things down in a clear methodological approach, which we should. But I feel like, by following all these things that I just mentioned, we are trying and we are being inspired by the work of EUSINA and WECF to carry on with these steps. Yeah, that's all from me. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Chris, and thanks for also mentioning the ambition statement. I think Antonia has shared it. That's very important in the Gender Power Working Group. So I think that's also from ResCoop. It's a very good board or units really to share all the experience and to get inspirations. I think that's great. And yeah, you also mentioned communication, so that's super and great. And also, Sarah, thanks for sharing. So this good example in Italy. So seeing that big institutes, for example, are also starting with gendered language and also with different expressions. So it shows progress. That's really good to see and good to hear. Well, we have two more examples we want to share very quickly, and then it's interesting also to get your thoughts. So we also invited a representative of a community in Bremen because they did a nice program, but they have the climate march today at 12, and so they are already on the road and are preparing. And so I got some mandate to tell something about it because it's really a super example. It's a very nice cooperative, about 10 years old. Supervisory board with 9 men and 1 woman, and the same is with the management board, 2 men and 1 woman, and they wanted to become more gender just, and so they approached women and asked, well, do you want to join us? And it would be great to have more women on board. So that was a very first easy approach. And as Sukhvin mentioned, so it was, for example, they found some interested women, and they wanted to know, well, how many women do you have on the board? And the point was that would have been the second women out of 10, and that was a situation of many women. Well, that's not very interesting, so I don't want to join this board. And then they developed like a concept, really, to approach via networks, via the professional networks, via the private networks, to approach women and to explain the concept of energy communities, and to have like a mini empowerment program or a mini qualification program of 5 modules. So it was, so are you interested to be engaged in an energy community? And if yes, it would be great if you take some time in the next 4 or 5 months. It was a process of 5 months, and they developed like 5 modules. of 1 or 2 hours, also considering the time availability of the women on the topic. So the first was overall the concept of energy communities, and we have seen from Stefan that it's not known at all in the broad society. So it's not known what a super concept energy communities are, and that was very important. So to see how you can be engaged, and I think that's the second. So to solve some myths. It's only technology. It's a lot. You need a lot of expertise. Of course, you need technology, but to my experience, I sometimes think it's the easiest exercise to implement the photovoltaic on the roof. So because all the legal issues, etc. So it's really complicated sometimes, not always. So it's really to show what is needed in terms of communication, in terms of funding, of graphics, of technologies, and organization and management of energy communities. That was the first one. The second one was invited association of cooperatives, so to explain the duties and the rights of board members. So to be very clear, so to address all legal issues. And the third one was a topic. So we did, for example, it was on gender and women's empowerment. How could women be empowered? Which tools could be implemented so to improve the information? And the third one was really to join current meetings of the management board and supervisory board, so to see the atmosphere, to get a feeling about it. So how is it? Do you have speakers speaking all the time, or is it? How is the organization of such a meeting? How can I create something new? How can I contribute? So to have really on-site experience. And the last session was to have an exchange and to ask all the questions I have raised. And that was a process of 4 months. And after the 4 months, and they recruited beforehand 25 women. And after 4 months, so 12 women said they are very interested to become engaged. So overall, for them, it's an option to become engaged. And out of the 12 women, so now the 5 women are candidates for the supervisory board. Now it means, so yesterday they had the General Assembly, and all the 5 women have been elected. Now they increased the share of 1 female advisory board member to 6. And so they have a bigger advisory board, now so that's one of the successes, really. So to have a process to inform, to communicate, and to take the time. And the next step, what they do is the onboarding. So it's not that you have more members. It's really so to have also techniques and technologies and methodologies to onboard the women. That's a very, in short, the example of Bremen, which is really easy, which is initiated by 2 men, which is very concrete and shows that on community level you can do a lot. And so it's that's very nice, just to let you know. And we think about together with Bremen, maybe also with Rescue, we need to discuss to have maybe a concept which could be used for many communities, just to have more women in your supervisory board or management board. That could be interesting. This is one example, and the last example, so I don't show the slides, but it's just of our project, what we are doing, Women for Renewable Energy, that is done by WCF. That's a Horizon project. It's really so to bring more women into the renewable heating and cooling sector. And we developed a very big capacity building program. It's a 3-day program. So we provided for our partners that could be also upscaled. It's on a technological level, it's on economic level, it's on gender level. There are many aspects covered. That's so one point. So it's hopefully a helpful instrument. And what we also did, so we did 5 webinars also on this topic, on different topics for stakeholders and experts and actors in the renewable heating and cooling sector about the different dimensions of gender. And it was always really interesting. And so, for example, we invited Stefan, We invited Dress Coop. We invited representative of Van Coop, mentioned by Chris, for example. It's a female-driven energy cooperative in Greece, organized mainly by female entrepreneurs, just to show the very different approaches. And so there's a lot of material around what we think and what can be used, what can be shared in the gender power working group, for example, or your Dress Group, or your Dress UCINA partners, or WSF, for example. I think that is what we wanted to share as examples. Yes, so a lot of input, a lot of hopefully practical information for you. And so we still have some time for questions, for comments, for if you want to add something, so that would be very interesting. Also from your country, so cooperative where you are active, or just some ideas to share, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
I am Aurore. I work at the University of Milan. I have led a study about women and in energy communities. So with Sarah Golesi and in Australia and EcoPower. And so I am just a researcher. So I don't work for a cooperative, but at my local level, I got an idea that I want to implant this year. It's in the school of my son, because I work on gender stereotypes, and it's my son is 2.5 years old, so very small, but for the child of the school, they are between 3 and 5 years, and I ask money from the city hall to buy renewable energy installation, and my aim is to ask the Polytechnic of Milan to send me women to make the installation with small children, and then also to change this view. And I have also a friend working at the University of Milan on gender stereotypes, and she proposed to make like an evaluation of the impact having a woman coming at the school, like for a little child, because it's not done for the moment in the literature. So if you wish, if the project work, if I find somebody, I will be very delighted to share with you. And it can also be a way for cooperative, to act on local territory, making like small things, but small things we can change sometimes everything. I mean, so voilà, it was just a suggestion about.
Great. Thank you very much, Aurore. So we know your studies. That's very interesting. So we also mention it in our publications, because it shows a very interesting result. And I think, yes, a fun fact is what we also know is that, for example, kids with 1 or 2 years are being confronted with a gender stereotype. So it's manifesting a lot, and it will drive you for a long time. So I think it's very important to start very early to know more about it, because it's a lot of education, formation, and socialization. I think that's super important. Voilà. That is what we are facing now. Of course, it's culture, it's our role models, it's what we see from our parents in our family, and I think that's us. And so, and not everything is bad, but I think we have to be aware. That's super important.
Voilà. Thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Any more thoughts from your end? So ideas, what can be helpful? So from the concept, for example, from Electra Energy, from EcoPower, what should be upscaled or what is needed? Everything clear? I think that's maybe also fine. Yeah.
I think that all the examples that we presented, and also the last example from Aurora about the installation, are very, very interesting. Maybe a comment from me, or I don't know. I mean, it would be I would be very much interested to see how we can indeed, like, let's say, create this smaller or bigger, let's say, projects or processes in all different areas. I mean, we heard some examples from Belgium, some examples from Germany, Greece, Italy. I would also, in the context of the gender power working group, we heard last time the news from Spain. And for me, what would be interesting is to see how we can actually indeed like start slowly, but really start with some smaller or bigger actions, processes in all different areas where we have energy communities, and then start comparing and exchanging and really learning from each other. Maybe we've shared also, and we've mentioned previously about the gender, the ambition statement of the Gender Power Working Group. I think this is, for me personally, a very important area, really like this exchange and learning from each other and supporting each other. I mean, I don't know, maybe I would like to ask, maybe do you have any specific question now for the last moments we have to maybe, yeah, Sukhvin, back to you.
Thank you. I have a question for Chris, actually. Chris, you were mentioning about that you, as a part of Electra, but also individually become members of other communities so that you can support them, right? So is it like you're part of get in capacity building or capacity strengthening terms, or is it you become the member and also part of management in somewhere so that you can help them with the decisions? How do you do that, and how has been your experience?
Yeah, both. I mean, so consider it like this. Electra is the umbrella, and it helps create these energy communities. And of course, there's the initial capacity building and awareness raising, but then you also become a member of the community, and you have a vote, and you can even get elected in the board of directors. And yeah, the point is exactly as you said, to help with the capacity building, but also the management itself. Yeah.
Thank you.
And for example, to say the good things and the less good things as well. For example, this community we were supporting in Samos now, that had to elect its first board of directors. We really kept saying, we encourage women to, put a candidacy for the board of directors, but then at the end, we only just had 3 men. So, you try, you don't necessarily succeed, but I think even the process of trying and mentioning these things sparks some light bulbs, which in itself has some inherent value.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's very helpful. Yes, and I come back to Antonia's proposal, so to think about maybe tools or instruments that could be implemented or could be planned by energy communities. So is it networking, mentoring, communication or recruitment program? So that might be interesting. And then to think about for the community, what could be very helpful, but could be a good starting point or entry point, and then maybe to have a progress of some months and to exchange the experience. That could be very interesting, and that could be a very concrete follow-up of the Gender Power Working Group. Maybe that's really interesting, and to use all the information we have now, because that's the idea, so to implement it and to make it happen. Yeah, that is the idea. Yeah, great. Anything to add? So I don't see that. Was it a hand, Aurore, or not sure. Okay, so if not, yeah, well, maybe we have still some time, but it's also okay, maybe not to take longer, but to have maybe 5 minutes left, it's also fine. So if you don't have any questions, just let us know what you still need to Antonia, to the Gender Power Working Group, also to WCF. So I'm very happy that we could do a lot of gender activities and to develop ideas in the USINA project. That is really a big progress. That's super. And to see that what's happening on the level of energy communities. Now our task is to go ahead and to realize it and to implement it and to share the experience and to interconnect. And that's the next step, what we should do. So I would end from my end. Antonia, do you have any final remarks?
I mean, just very briefly, thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Katarina, Sugvin, everyone, like Camille, Chris, every single person here, actually, for this webinar we had. But I also wanted to thank you for the past 2 years, as we mentioned. Indeed, it has been a long way, but I've grown a lot also personally. I've learned a lot on the topic, and I'm really looking forward to all the future activities. I had in mind, should I challenge everyone now to write in the chat maybe what is the next concrete action that they will take? I don't know, maybe I will just throw it there. If you feel ready, just write in the chat your next concrete action that you will take in the context of all the different recommendations you've heard, the stories, the best examples that we had. Because maybe that's the last comment from me. I mean, because we really wish to have, action. We really want to see the change happening, and we're here to really help you take this forward. That's all from me. So feel free to leave some comments in the chat. If not, feel also free to just contact us at RescuePU. You can write me, at the colleagues from WCF and all the colleagues in the context of UCINA. And I see Miriam has a comment there. Let me see. Next Tuesday, there's going to be the conference, Women and Sustainability in the Energy Transition, the Spanish ministry. Okay, yes, I'm an air. Indeed, it's good actually keeping it, spread the word, really keep referring to all the work that we do in the context of the Gender Power Working Group, the statement, and keep sharing really all the developments. Thanks, Miriam. I think that we can close the webinar here. Once again, thank you very much for the participation and the interaction. We will keep in touch. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day and a great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.